what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the books that I read in August. I'm sorry these videos have been late the last few months. I will be trying to get them back on schedule. But in the month of August, I read 7 books and 1 novella, which I'm really happy about. I feel like this has just been happening every single month this year, but every month when I'm getting ready to film my wrap up, I always feel like I've read just like 3 books, but then as I'm going through my Goodreads, I realize I've actually read like 7, which has been really great because I'm impressing myself every time I film a wrap up. The novella that I read in August is Every Exquisite Thing by Cassandra Clare. I believe this is novella number 4 in the Ghosts of the Shadow Market series, anthology, short story collection. I don't know what it's called, but it's a thing and they're being released periodically every month and I've been loving it. While the Ghost from the Shadow Market series really follows the story of Brother Zachariah as he encounters different people in the Shadow Market throughout his life, this one specifically follows Anna Lightwood, who is a character in the upcoming Last Hour series, and it is just all about her life at this time. She meets a girl, they go on some adventures, and it was just so amazing. But oh my goodness, am I in love with Anna Lightwood. As soon as her character was announced, I was like, she's gonna be my new fave, and we got a whole novella dedicated to just her, and it was as amazing, like more amazing than I could have expected. If you don't know, Anna Lightwood is genderqueer. She rejects the gender binary, and she's also, I believe, exclusively interested in women. So this was just the story of Anna falling in love for the first time, experiencing all of those butterflies, but also coming to terms with who she is as a person, her own identity, and also dealing with the fears of being a genderqueer person in like the early 1900s when it is a very conservative time. I really feel that the writing and overall construction of this short story does compare to Cassandra Clare's full novels, because I've mentioned in almost any time I talk about Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter novellas that they just never feel as great as her full-length novel. So I was really happy to get all of the feelings that I normally have when reading a full novel in just like this short snippet. It was so satisfying. Out of the 5 novellas I've read, it is definitely the most eventful because we have the cutesy romance, but then we also have like these demon fighting moments, and we also have a lot of like internal conflict, external conflict. It's just all around really expertly done, and I loved it so much. I just want to read it over and over again because I'm so in love with Anna Lightwood. The first novel that I read in the month of August is What If It's Us by Adam Silvera and Becky Albertalli. This is the first collaboration for these 2 fantastic authors, and it is all about these 2 boys who meet by chance and eventually find their ways back to each other and go on this series of bad first dates, and it's really like, is the universe pushing us together or is it pulling us apart? I really enjoyed my time reading What If It's Us. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Some of my favorite things in this novel were the writing style and the romance. I think Becky and Adam succeeded at writing a very well-balanced novel. You know, Arthur's chapters are 100% written by Becky Albertalli, and for Ben's chapters, you could not mistake this book for anyone else but Adam Silvera. And along with that, while they do preserve their own unique storytelling voices, I think Adam and Becky do a really great job of keeping the characters consistent when they are writing from a different person's perspective. It's just a very cohesive novel. And I love the romance. It's just like another fun, fluffy book. The storyline of them having this missed connection and finding their way back to each other was a very unique twist on the typical meet cute that I really appreciated. Even though there are definitely a lot of stories about 2 people who meet by chance, I do think this one particularly stands on its own, which is very important. Arthur is gay, Jewish, and has ADHD, and then Ben is gay and Puerto Rican, so there's a lot of rich discussion happening alongside this cutesy contemporary story. That being said, while I like loved my time reading What If It's Us, and once I hit the halfway mark, I could not put it down, I will say it's probably my least favorite of both Becky and Adam's work, and I do prefer their own individual works just because it did feel very predictable. Besides this fresh concept and these unique characters, the overall construction and plot of this story just doesn't really push the boundaries of what we can expect from a young adult contemporary novel, and I was expecting a little bit more from them. I'm a reader who loves plot twists. I love being surprised, but there were only 2 things in this story that I really predicted. One of them takes place during the falling action of the story, and in my opinion, it wasn't like a really groundbreaking moment for me to be surprised by. and the second is the ending, which I did not expect, and I thought it was perfect. Totally took me by surprise and was really, really great. But otherwise, the main part of the story just felt like very basic, and I wish there was more going on there. I think my Goodreads review better expresses my feelings towards the predictable nature of this book, so you can check that out below. In my wrap-ups, I always link my Goodreads reviews, which do feature some more in-depth non-spoiler thoughts on these books that I'm talking about, as well as trigger warnings and such. So if you want to check any of my Goodreads reviews out down below, definitely check them out. But overall, I really enjoyed my time reading What If It's Us. I loved it. It wasn't a disappointment. I think that's like the most important thing when it comes to like my main gripe about the story is like I was a little let down, but the overall story is still fun and cute and enjoyable, and I would still 100% recommend you guys pick it up. I feel like I'm progressively getting a little bit more loquacious with every single wrap up, so I'll try to be a little bit more concise. Next book that I completed in the month of August is an audiobook I listened to through Audible, and it is Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I love this book so much. It is 100% a favorite of the year. It'll probably prevail to be a very long-lasting favorite of mine. It was just so wonderful in every sense of the word. It follows this girl named Morrigan Crow who has lived her entire life believing that she is cursed and bad things happen to those who are around her. And on her 11th birthday, she is fated to die. And while she's being chased by these shadowy figures, she is rescued by this man who takes her to this city, and she is thrown into this competition to join this thing called the Wondrous Society. I know that's not very descriptive and very vague, but it's fantastic. My selling point of this book is it is the most similar book to Harry Potter that I could possibly recommend to you while still standing on its own. After the huge success of Harry Potter, there have been so many knockoff Wizarding World stories about magical schools and wizards and whatnot, and they are just thrown away as like the budget version of Harry Potter. When Nevermore gives me all of the same feelings that I had while reading Harry Potter. Like, I read this entire book with a smile on my face, just feeling so magical and wonderful while reading it, but it is also entirely unique and engaging in its own way, and it's deserving of not being referred to as just another Harry Potter. Also, the audiobook is fantastic. If you like audiobooks, you absolutely have to pick up Nevermore in audio. It is such an immersive experience. It is 100% one of my favorite audiobooks now, and I'm just like so obsessed with this book. It's equal parts compelling and entertaining and dark. I love the characters. I love the world that has been created for this story. The competition was really unique and interesting, and it was so much fun. It was so great, and I just want everyone to read Nevermore because it is such an enjoyable experience. I find it to be really deep and complex, you know, beyond just the fun nature of a story with a lot of magic. It does delve a lot into self-identity and not only having other people accept you for who you are, but accepting yourself. It is just, it's so good. That's all I want to say about it, is it's just amazing, and I really think you guys should read it. The next book I read in the month of August is technically a book I read for school. It wasn't necessarily pleasure reading, so I decided to include it in this wrap up because it is a book that I read. But if you guys want me or don't want me to talk about any books I do read for school, like, let me know. I can do that. But the book I read is A Guide to Graduate Programs in Counseling, written by Tyler M. Kimball and Dana Heller-Levitt. This book was given to me and assigned to me by my graduate program. I am entering graduate studies for clinical mental health counseling, and so they wanted all of us to read this book to get an introduction to the world of counseling, what we can expect from grad school, etc. I thought this was a really great introduction into the profession of counseling. It delves into the history of counseling and how it became its own area of study and occupation. There was a lot of content in this book in getting ready for grad school, you know, finishing undergrad, choosing a program, deciding what sort of area of counseling you want to go into, because that's a whole nother discussion. That middle chunk on applying to graduate school wasn't all that relevant to me because I was already accepted to my program, but if I had read this book like my senior year of college when I knew I wanted to go into counseling, but I just like wasn't sure what program I wanted to apply to or what exactly I wanted to do with a degree in counseling, it would have been really, really helpful. So with that being said, if you are a student currently in college who is interested in going into counseling in the future, I would highly, highly recommend this book. It's a short book. It's pretty engaging for what it is. You know, I wasn't super bored while reading, which I think is like all you can really ask for with books like this. So 100%, if you are interested in going into the field of counseling, I would highly, highly recommend you pick up this book because it's full of so much information that is really, really valuable. And so the last section of this book is really what to expect from grad school and what to expect after. It talks a lot about getting licensed and seeking certification and all the different types of certifications and specializations you can go into. And so that particularly was of great interest to me because that's really where I'm at in my counseling career. So I did really enjoy it. I found it very, very helpful, and it just made me more excited to go into the world of counseling, to continue with my grad program, and to just do more to achieve my goals. So I found it to be a really worthwhile read. The next book that I read in the month of August is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. I am reading this as a part of the Mortal Instruments Drug Society read-along I have going on. If you want more information on that, you can check the description. We did recently have our live show for Clockwork Princess, so if you have read this book and want to check out what I and some of my lovely co-hosts had to say about it, that is also in the description. I really loved Clockwork Princess. I've been saying this as I have been rereading the series over this year, that I just feel so much more connected to this particular story in the Shadowhunters universe than ever before, and it has been like making my life. If you've been on my channel for like more than 5 seconds, you've probably heard the story of how when I first read the Infernal Devices series, I hated it because it was not the Mortal Instruments, and I was just like a very petty, bitter reader at the time because there was no Jace Wayland, whatever. And with this being my 4th reread of this series, every time I reread it, I love it even more, and I feel like I finally hit my peak of appreciation for this series, and it just warms my heart. This was just such a fabulous conclusion. I love all of the different directions that it goes in and all of the different conflicts that are presented. It is just so well-rounded and like flawless. Oh my god, I loved it so much. I feel like I could talk forever about the content and the plot points in Clockwork Princess, but overall what I've really gotten from this reread is that I just feel that I'm finally able to appreciate it for what it's worth. I feel like I just finally got it. It clicked with me, and that's so, so satisfying. You can't see it very well in this frame, but I have been marking my editions of the Shadowhunter Chronicles as I've been rereading them with book darts, and so I've tabbed so much, and it really surprises me to go from like not caring about this series at all to loving it so much and wanting to fully analyze every piece of it. It's been a really, really great experience, and I definitely think this is a reread that I will absolutely remember. The next book I listened to on audiobook for the month of August is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Yes, I finally read this book after talking about it in my mid-year book freakout tags for like 2 years in a row, and you guys constantly yelling at me to read it. I read it. I know I said I was gonna try and be concise, but like, let's be real, it's me. I'm gonna ramble anyways, and there's just like no way for me to quickly talk about my experience and my thoughts with this book. I did decide to listen to this book on audio, which was a daunting choice from the start. I was aware that The Night Circus would be a bit more of a challenging read for me because it's an adult fantasy novel. It's historical fiction, which I did not know, and just the prose is so heavy and flowery and dense that I knew it was going to be tough, like regardless. Plus adding audiobook on top of it, maybe it wasn't the best decision, but I really enjoyed my time reading it. Essentially, I got like 4 hours into the audiobook, and I was liking it, but I knew that I just wasn't retaining anything that was happening. And I was just like, I want to finish this book. I'm going to restart from the beginning and just see if that makes it any better. I think I slowed it down a little bit, and it just worked. So reading The Night Circus, while I was listening to it that second time, it really clicked with me, and I just fell in love with this story. The writing style and the atmosphere of this book specifically is just so wonderful. I feel like every time I listened to the audiobook, I was being transported into The Night Circus. It was very visually stimulating and just all around so great. I would like 100% recommend you read this book just off of the atmosphere because it's an experience that I haven't had with any other books, to be honest. honest. So when I did complete the Night Circus, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I was like riding that high you get sometimes after finishing a book that you think is so great and all you can think about is how amazing it was. And so I've gotten into this habit recently that I really, really loved, where once I finish a book and I'm like getting ready to write my Goodreads review or film my wrap up, I read other people's Goodreads reviews, and it's just been so great in helping me fully comprehend a story and making sure that there aren't things that I've missed, and I'm comprehending other people's view of the story and seeing how it differs from mine or why we agree. In doing so, I did not realize how polarizing this book actually was. I thought it was like unanimously loved, but there were actually a lot of mixed reviews that I read, and I think by doing so, it really helped me to get out of that sort of post finishing a book high and take the book for what it really was, as opposed to just my personal experience of it. So by viewing the book from a lot of different perspectives, I feel like I was able to break myself out of that post reading high and truly analyze the book and recognize some of the things that did bother me while I was reading, but I didn't necessarily recognize them because I was just so caught up in the atmosphere and the excitement of the story. One of the things I realized I had an issue with in the story was the actual competition. You know, this book, the main synopsis is that there is this competition between two magicians who have been like raised from childhood to compete and to win. And so I thought it was going to be this like really intense magical battle, and it just was not that. The issue with the competition is that there's like no sense of urgency in it. This is a very slow-paced book, which overall I didn't really mind, but in terms of the competition, they're just like nothing happens. Like there's no fear of consequences, there's no real drive to win. It's just sort of like an existing thing in the story that the characters have to work around, but I just feel like it wasn't super developed. So it's just a little perplexing in that like the whole story is formed around this competition, and I just feel like until like 3/4 of the way into the book we get like no information about it and it's not really paid attention to. So it was a little bizarre. And with that comes the romance between the two magicians, which I just posted a video talking about unnecessary romances, and the Night Circus definitely falls into that. I'm so tired of this trope of like these star-crossed lovers who are fated to fight or battle or hate each other or whatever, and then they fall in love. I'm so sick of it being done so lazily and like only relying on that trope to keep the progression of the romance going, because it was so boring. It's not even the trope itself that bothers me, because I've read so many good stories about forbidden lovers. It's just the fact that it was just so mediocre that really upset me. So this is one of those situations where I have a lot of critiques about the book, but my overarching feelings on it is that it was enjoyable, it was fun, I had a great experience reading it, I loved the writing style. So like I remember the positives more than I remember the negatives, which is why I gave it 4 stars over 3, but there's definitely still flaws in it that could have been easily fixed that I do think bogged down the story a little bit. And the final book that I read in the month of August is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. I finished 2 Shadowhunter series this month and I am just living my best life. Everyone knows that The Mortal Instruments is my favorite series of all time, and this is the conclusion of my favorite series of all time, and so nonetheless, I really enjoyed my time reading it. I will say, and I'm shocked that I have to say, that I feel I didn't enjoy City of Heavenly Fire as much as the other times that I've read it. I read this book like 6 times probably, and this is probably my least favorite reread, despite the fact that I still love the story. I was just a little bored, which is like so weird because I'm never bored while reading Cassandra Clare's books, and I've never been bored before. There's a lot of competing plot lines in this particular novel, and so I think that in order to give each of them the development they required, I just feel like they were each dragged out a little bit too much. But like I still love this book with all of my heart. Like the character development in this book is so good. It makes me so mad when people like critique the characters of like Jace and Clary and Isabel and stuff, because like, did you read City of Heavenly Fire? I think that was my real takeaway from City of Heavenly Fire, is just the character development is fantastic. Each main character in the story has really hit their peak potential at this point of the story, and it was so exciting to watch. These characters have been through so much, they've grown through so much together, and it was just so satisfying to see each of them like really be the person that they've meant to be this whole time. I loved it. And in addition to the characters, I love the point at which the romances of this story are. Like, the three main individual couples are all so different at the start of this story, but they have all developed into grown adult relationships, and it's just so wonderful. I love it so much. So maybe it wasn't my favorite reread of City of Heavenly Fire that I've ever had, because like I've had a lot. But nonetheless, I was so excited to go into it, and I was so excited when I finished. I do think that this story is just so valuable and important and really delves into a lot of important topics in the Shadowhunter world, and I love it so much. My love for the Shadowhunter series will always prevail over anything negative I have to say about it, because it's just my fave. So that concludes my August wrap up. I read so many good books this month. I'm like really pleased with my August reading month, because again, I did not realize I read this much. In the comments below, I would love to know your favorite book that you read in the month of August. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new video. Bye!